joined us before, so I'm just going to give you a quick update on or overview of what we're all doing, so everybody's up to speed. So basically, we've got a combination of BIM for housing, which has been going now for many years, and BIM in asset management, which is probably 2 years old now. Um, BIM for housing is based, we've got a number of different working groups which meet every couple of months to really decide what information is needed to support the various different activities that people are involved with. And from those, we then determine, the teams determine what information, for example, would construction teams benefit from if the development team or designers gave them more structured information, and the same with operations from construction. So we've developed a range of different standardized information requirements. These are developed in work streams, which then come up with standardized knowledge from the community. And these are all published on the BIM for Housing website, which and BIM in Asset Management. So Rich is going to talk about that in a bit. We've also led the Golden Thread Task Force over the last few years, really bringing together people who are subject matter experts, manufacturers, designers, asset managers, to really determine what the Golden Thread needs to contain. And that was fed into different people. So we identified that different people need different information for different purposes. So that's why classification and taxonomy is so important. And also to be able to interpret the legislation in certain standardized ways. So these are the sorts of resources that we've got available that we've worked on collaboratively. For example, interpreting the different regulations. We created a Miro board for that. But also looking at this from a point of view of the detailed information about individual asset types. What information do we need to know about fire doors, for example, to ensure that we're collecting the right information? So these have been put together by teams of people who are real experts in fire doors, for example. And we've also produced this publication, which is a standardized way of doing fire door inspections. So again, this is downloadable from the website, and it's quite a high quality document. So it supports Regulation 10, but it goes into a bit more detail. And we've just recently done one last year for fire dampers and fire stopping. So a similar type of thing. As a collective, we are able to engage with the regulators. So these are some sort of feedback that we've had in the past from the government and the regulator. And what we're trying to deal with the fact is that landlords are inundated with different things that they've got to do. So it's a matter of really trying to help them deal with the fact that there's still a heck of a lot of things that are not being done properly. And that's where the golden thread work that we've been doing fits in. And the implications of this, if it's not done properly, are starting to come home to roost, where we've got projects that have Gateway 3 have failed. Here we're seeing the Defective Premises Act coming in. So, and then the most recent one is Mace versus Mighty, a claim against fire dampers. So what we've discovered over the years is that we've found that these are surveys that we've done. We're not that individuals within our group are finding that, in particular, senior directors aren't aware of their responsibilities under the Building Safety Act. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do with the benefits workshop that I'm going to be going on to shortly. Richard, could you show what we've got on the website?
Absolutely. Let me just find the page and I will share that. Okay. Okay, tell me when you can see.
Yeah, I can see now.
Okay, great. Right, here we go. The first thing at the top is, as ever, the monthly forum, because it's such an important event in everything we do. This is what we're doing. We're building a community of asset management experts. How do we do it? Well, how we do it, as George mentioned, are working groups. And here they are. And these working groups identify issues, focused issues, which are then passed through to our work streams. These are our current work streams. These are task and finish. The idea being that they will have an output that will resolve the issue identified by the working group. You can see them here: AWAB's law, digital handover, fire strategy, and if you click on one of those, you can see the meeting notes, meeting video, and a 15-minute podcast that summarizes that meeting. And we do this for all our meetings. So if you miss anything, you can always, or you're interested in something else that you haven't attended, you can always find that. This meeting, likewise, you will be sent meeting notes, a video link, and a podcast. So you can share that with colleagues should you wish. Okay, where are we? Well, that's jumped, hasn't it? There we go. So they're the work streams. Now, if anybody's interested in any of those work streams, we're particularly looking at the moment for schools, healthcare, residential, and AI and data engineering. So if you're interested or you're working in the schools area, put schools, that's schools and education, it's college as well, but put schools into the chat. Put schools into the chat and we will sign you up and get you invited for the next meeting. Likewise for healthcare, if you're in the healthcare arena, put healthcare in the chat and we will be in touch with you for the next meeting, which I think is next week actually, but there'll be more. Residential, if you're interested in the residential or you're working in the residential area, put residential in the chat and we will be in touch with you. If you're working in AI or interested in AI and data engineering and how it can affect what you're doing and the delivery of quality information, put AI in the chat. AI in the chat, and we've got a meeting for that, I think, next week, George, and we'll get invites out to you shortly. So schools, healthcare, residential, and AI. Actually, while I'm on it, we have a working group, an operations working group, which should be relevant to everybody in this meeting, actually. So if you want to join the operations working group, put operations in the chat. Put operations in the chat to join the operations working group. Likewise, we have an advisory and consultancy working group. This is for people who work as advisors, as consultants. If you're an advisor or a consultant, put advisory in the chat. Put advisory or consultancy in the chat. Okay, so we've got operations, advisory or consultancy, schools, healthcare, residential, and AI. Okay.
There's a lot
I don't
going
know if you
on
can
there.
hear that pinging. It's going crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. This is the Golden Thread Task Force. This is a highly focused cross-industry team created to establish the standard and provide the expertise and deliver the solutions to make the golden thread a practical, achievable, and sustainable reality. If you want to learn more about that, just click through there, and everything you could want to know about the Golden Thread Task Force is there. If you're interested in getting involved in that, put task force in the chat. This is task force. If you're interested in getting involved in really getting down to the nitty gritty on actually delivering the golden thread. Okay, now we have the Knowledge Hub. We are the Knowledge Hub. This meeting is part of the Knowledge Hub. This is what we do. On the right, we've got up and coming meetings, as you can see. This button, past events,
Sorry,
will
Richard. I think
take you through here. Sorry?
Richard, you need to share your screen again. I'm sorry. I thought that we were finishing. Sorry, carry on. You need to share your screen again.
Oh, right. Wait a minute. When did we start?
I don't know.
Right, wait a minute.
It just literally 20 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Have you got that? Right.
Yep.
This is the list of the past meetings. Now, this is Black Box. This is an interesting one. This is an interesting initiative here. This is case studies on issues. It could be a single asset risk or failure or a fully fledged incident. Right, if we look here on asset risk, we've got quite a few in there. When something's failed and how you solved it. So if you've got something that, whether it's a big incident that's occurred where you're working or that you're aware of, come on here and report it. Likewise, right. just an asset failure, and that can be a resource for you to see how other people have solved things as well. Now we'll just go down here. Financial impact. Now this is real world examples of what's happening if you don't have the right information. George mentioned Mason Mighty earlier. We've got London Borough Barking. All these are legal. These are all in the courts right now, all recently over the last couple of weeks. This one, the East Village one, isn't in the courts, but it's 432 million fire safety crisis for East Village management. So either add to that or use it as a resource for yourselves to convince potentially your superiors as to why they need better information management. And here we have recommendations for fire critical assets. These are the ones that George mentioned earlier on. And I don't know what's happened there. That's clicked through. Okay, so that's giving you a quick run through of that. I'll stop sharing. And George, what's next?
Yeah, it's the examples from the golden thread. So I'll step through that quickly, and then we can move on to the benefits. Okay. So
great.
Broadly, what we've got now is quite a wide group of technology companies working together. It's frozen. Sorry, Teams froze just for a second there.
Is it okay now?
I think so. Yeah, so we've got quite a substantial team of people now who are, for example, working on digital handover. And as Richard was saying earlier, we've got the education group, and we've got residential, and we've got healthcare. So we've got quite a strong community around the golden thread. And part of the process that we're operating, which some of you will know before, but what we're trying to do is deal with the fact that most projects are providing at least CAD data and O&M manuals, but the problem is that they're not properly glued together. So you've got a lot of mismatch, which we're going to be talking about in the automate section a bit later. So the principle that we're operating as a collective group of different software companies and providers is the ability to take the various different information that is being produced by different software and then make it so that it's glued together in a meaningful way. And where, for example, information doesn't get modeled, asset information in particular, that can be picked up through 360 photography, which again, we're going to be talking about later. But this is an example of a really strong solution that's been put together by JJ Rattigans and the client, which is the education service, and Sodexo, the asset managers. So what we've got here are, for example, finding fire dampers, being able then to tie this back to the product information. So we've got the relationship between the golden thread relationship between the need for a fire damper, what product was selected, where has it been installed, and then we're also then tapping into other information that was collected on using open space by the construction team, which are 360 photographs that then the asset teams can use, which is a fantastic way of tying all these things together. And then from then, being able then to connect that back out to any documentation that is being held in this particular case, it was gathered in SharePoint. So the documents are then tied back to the individual assets, and also we've got then a connection through to the maintenance information, and the maintenance information both in terms of what the documents are in the O&Ms, but also tying it back to SFG 20. So the principle that we're working on is that we've got information that is machine readable, because that's what we insist on. We've got collaboration and pulling together, that's providing a context for where that information, where that asset is. So the fundamental thing is that what we're doing is concentrating on gathering spaces and assets. We can also get activities that have been done for different reasons, like statutory maintenance, for example, but also operationally critical maintenance and organizational information. And then again, our common role there is spaces and assets. And the same with, finally, fire safety, energy consumption, and also infrastructure within the building. And again, what we need to know is where those things are. So that's really the principle that we're trying to operate as far as the golden thread is concerned. So what I'm now going to do is ask. We've been doing a lot of work over this last few weeks, really, to deal with the fact that senior managers possibly aren't understanding the value that all our information workers are actually doing in this area. So Paul Sheedy initially. Paul, could you just explain what we've done with your report? Let me just pull it up, actually. Sorry, Paul. Can you talk for a second myself?
Yeah. So did you say pause or talk?
Excuse me?
Did you say pause or did you say talk? I didn't hear you.
Talk. Yeah. Could you?
Talk.
Could you?
Okay, great. I can do
I think
that.
your speaker's
Right.
turned off, Paul.
Say it again.
Yeah, so maybe not. Your speaker might be turned off.
All right. So I looked at all of the documentation, etc. Right, and the issue I saw very clearly. And please, I'm not offending any of you here, but let's face facts. We're geeks, okay? And when this goes to a C-suite of a corporation, we really need the FD and the CEO and the COO and etc. to understand this, and they're not going to sit there and looking at ASI standard XYZ. So I put together really a way of soft, let's call it the ladybird book of understanding the golden thread, what it is for the organizations, and really sort of repositioning this as why they need to embrace the golden thread, why it's an advantage to them, and what obviously the legal implications of them not following this. But just to take it back a little step away from the sort of the geekiness of our high level details that we have in each of our little niche areas of interest. And just make this far more consumable for a C-suite. So it is really for everybody more of a marketing solution to bring into markets exactly why they need to start looking at this, why it's important, why legally they have to actually get on board, but also the advantage for that building, both in terms of its asset value by having clearly defined digitalization of what's happening in the building. And just the risks and pushing that this is actually just the right moral thing to do, but also the right commercial thing to do as well. So it's written in a different way to most of these documents. Okay, it's written really as a way to soften. And then the second sort of chapter of this, or second piece of the document, it gets a little more detailed. And as I said to George, what we're going to do then is get right down to the very, very nitty gritty, where this then goes out to the building managers and the various engineers inside the building itself. But it's aimed at the very start at the C-suite to just get them on board and take this as an initiative they need to jump on board and make happen. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. Yeah, so what we've been doing over this last month or so is really looking at all of the different activities that we carry out as information managers to be able to determine what is being done as part of the golden thread, what are the principal activities, and also then look at what the outcomes are. And we've tried to put some measurable outcomes against those so that they can be seen as an organizational benefit for all of the work that's been going on. So what we'd really like people to do is to take a look at what we've been doing and then take it on to the next stage. So to help with that, we've got Mo from Malta and also Franco Pitoni, who's a controls expert, to form a little group that we're going to be working on. Mo, could you just show us what you've set up for us?
Yeah, awesome. Hi, everyone. Really good to be with you. So I've been building off some of the work that Richard, George, and Franco have been doing, and I think like there are two key things. One, we have a document effectively in place that summarizes the key benefits that we have. So you can see the key ones are information quality, standardization, and auditability, cost and reduction across the asset life cycle, all the way down to automation, integration, and portfolio scalability. If we go down into any of these, we then have a range of things. So we have what's the cost base or the function that's being affected, what do they actually want to achieve, how could they get it, what are the financial benefits associated with each of these, what's the risk exposure reduction, and then how can it actually be delivered. So what's the sequence of activities that I need in order to achieve that, and then a summary of what does this mean on a board level. So we've brought this information together, but fundamentally we're starting with this as a bit of a summary for why these things are beneficial. Over time, what we really want to do is to validate all of this information that's here, because that's like things in many ways we've put out as a collective group, as a first draft. And then we think the way to do that is by drilling a bit deeper. And what I mean by that is twofold. So technically speaking, underlying all of this is a set of activities. So George just had that on screen. We technically have, and one of the things we want feedback on is ultimately is the set of activities, like completely right, but stakeholder coordination, information capture and classification, digital product data and O&M production, validation and data quality, information federation integration, digital twin and record of portfolio, maintenance and response to issues, work instruction compliance and planning, and then as-built model surveying and AI findability. Now, within ideally, what we get to is something that looks in some ways similar to like a REBA plan of work, but for handover and for golden thread related tasks and activities. So I have the set of activities that I just went through now. And ideally, what we need to start working towards is first we agree on the set of activities. Then, having agreed on the set of activities, we can break them down into the set of tasks that belong to every one of these activities. And then for every one of these tasks, we can start defining a range of things. And I've just put out some examples for what ideally should be defined. But things like, what's my output or deliverable from a specific for a specific task? What's my responsibility like? So who's responsible for the task, who's accountable for it, who's a contributor, who's informed. And then I have some additional columns like what REBA stages does this specific task, for example, or does this activity belong to? Because what we'll see over time is there's a lot of relationships between the tasks and the activities and the tasks that are associated with like golden thread and REBA stages, or the same could be like some people can talk about things like 19650, for example. There's relationships with that too. Over time, we can also start looking so that we actually can quantify, genuinely quantify what we have. We can start going, this is the time something actually takes. But if we were to use specific technologies, and when I say technologies, I'm using the word quite holistically. I don't just mean software. It could it could be hardware, it could be anything really. But if we were to adopt best practice, what would that then do to the time if we were to use that? So we're starting basically to build a framework in many ways for how we would capture these tasks. And really the idea becomes having a very granular understanding of the jobs that people have to do in order to deliver on the golden thread, and then to identify the inefficiencies that are currently happening, and then off the back of that, being able to actually suggest the best ways in which things should be done. So I'll just stop here and see if that made sense.
Can you just hold that there, and let's just see if anybody's got any questions on that. Is that all clear? Does Pierre?
Well, all good. I really like it. The one thing I'd like to see in there, we have input documents and production documents. And while they could be branded for particular companies, it's actually to formalize the data that's required at each of those tasks. And if we get an alignment there, that would help considerably. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Anyone else on this initiative? If anyone wants to get involved in this, by the way, if you put benefits in the chat, we will be in touch with you. We do rely for this on your input. You know, we need your input on this, so please do come forward.
Richard, could I just say that?
Absolutely.
So we've got a volunteer, a very, very able volunteer, as in Franco Pittoni, helping with this. I'd just like to, for Franco, just to put your camera on, Franco, just so everybody knows who you are. And then
he's on. Here I am.
Okay, I can't see you at the moment. It's just the way this thing works.
The screen.
Oh, I can see myself. Not very interested.
Okay,
in looking at myself.
I can see you.
There we go.
You're on page 4 of mine. We've got so many people on. So the point about this, we don't have the time to go into this in detail, but what I think we want to do is arrange something maybe next week or the week after, ideally next week, depending on people's availability, to actually go down and look at this in some detail. Franco can explain to you what we're trying to do as far as the tasks are concerned, and then we can go from there. Sorry, Franco, do you want to say something?
Well, most of it has already been said. It's a matter of collecting tasks from different people that have different experiences and different needs.
Yeah.
Making sure that after the collection exercise has been completed, we do a kind of cleaning work, so to speak, so identifying duplicates and making sure that the definition of these tasks is as clear as it can be. And then we have to find the best method, which obviously we cannot discuss today, to group and aggregate, summarize these tasks, classify them in such a way that this exercise is beneficial both from the point of view of a working level person and also for a top manager viewpoint. Okay.
Thank you, Franco.
That's the plan.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody got any queries on that? Army Kruberly, is this something that would be a benefit for you? Just gone on hold. Alex Oldman.
Always live in fear that you're going to shout out my name, Richard. Hello, yes. Yes, I think it's really interesting to see how the information is going to be coordinated together. So I'm running multiple screens. I'm not looking at you at the moment over here. So yes, I've also just been looking at the mortar.io website. So that's a really interesting initiative. So yes, I think it's a good set of tools. I like what we're doing here.
Joseph.
Yeah, I'm working on something similar. I'm in a big I'm BIM manager at MTVH, which is the big housing association, and I'm kind of tasked with understanding the company and the different departments and what information they need and why they need it for our developments that are being done at the moment. And there's a conflict really because the people in development want to get buildings as cheaply as possible, but the people maintaining the buildings want as much information they need to maintain the building more efficiently. And these two things are both about saving money, but they are in conflict with each other. And understanding other people have tried to gather this information, how they did it, is helpful to me to look at. If I get it, is there a way of getting a copy of this sheet that I can look at and examine in more detail? Because in my process, I'm putting everything together for Kobe spreadsheet on our EIR, but I'd like to see how other people have tackled the same issues about finding out what information different areas are needed, what they need information for, and how to best present that to the people actually running departments or maintaining the buildings or whoever they might be.
In large part, that's what we want to. That's what we want to discuss. So what we actually, in many ways, want to get to as a group is these are the steps that we think someone has to take in order to delivering, like fundamentally, the information at the end.
So what we'll do, if you've put Joseph, if you've put your the what have we called it, Richard? Is it benefits?
Benefits. If you put benefits in the chat, Joe, then we can.
We'll invite you to a meeting. Yeah. So there's two aspects to this, just to be clear. One is that we've got the detail work that Mo and Franco are going to be working on, but we've also got the high level white paper report that Paul Sheedy was just going through. So what we want to do on Paul Sheedy's work is for people to do peer review on that. So if you're interested in having that as a document, which is a really good document to maybe share with your senior people, that would be very helpful if you could say you're willing to peer review it, because it's our objective to actually get that out towards the within the next couple of weeks before the end of the month. So peer review would be something that we can then share it with you.
Franco, your hand's up.
Yeah, I was wondering if it's possible to get an editable copy of Paul Sheedy's document, because I think practically it's much easier to work on a, for example, a Word document rather than a PDF, right? Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
that okay,
we
Paul?
will, Mo's Mortar will actually be, we're looking at obviously getting that up online so that everybody can go on there and contribute. Okay, unless, has anybody got anything else? Okay, George, do you want to go on to automate?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so what we've been doing over this last month or so is looking at the way AI is being used to see if we can have some levels of standardization, because and we've got a work stream set up, and a work stream, again, just to explain, it's a task and finish thing. So we define what we're trying to get out of it, and then we probably have 3 or 4 meetings, and then come up with some outputs. So these are the people that currently are part of the AI and data engineering group. If you are doing anything and if you are interested in this area, then please feel free to drop AI into the chat, and we'll invite you to the next meeting. So the next meeting on this is on the 19th. It's next Thursday. So the build on that's not working properly. That's my fault. Yeah. So basically, what we're basically saying is that there is a risk as far as using AI at the moment, in that it's fantastic, but at the moment, effectively, it's free. Yeah, it's being subsidized by the investors in these big companies. So even if you're paying, even if you've got a paid subscription, that's not really covering the cost of the AI. So at some stage, it's going to go up. And in part, one of the reasons that we're struggling with it is that what it's actually being used to do in most cases is to fix unstructured data. Now, that's great, but it's relatively inefficient to do that, because people are asking the same questions of the LLM, whereas what we could do is is standardize the way questions are being asked, make them a little bit smarter in terms of how we're asking them. But the most important thing is to actually record what the outcome is, and then for a group of experts to be able to say, yeah, that makes sense, or no, it doesn't. So rather than working in isolation, what we're trying to do is to look to bring together a group that we're calling Automate, Golden Thread Task Force Automate, to work collaboratively. So the principle that we're working on here is to establish a community and a commercial model, where we've got a small group that are willing to share experiences, test tools out, refine methods, and then release them for the wider use of the rest of the Golden Thread Task Force. So if you're interested in being part of that, we don't know yet what the commercial model is going to be, because nobody really knows how the whole technology platform is going to work. But I'm going to show you now some of the things that we've been doing as Active Plan, so that you can then say, well, we'd like to buy into that process and bring to it work that we're doing. So if Joseph, for example, is doing stuff, then you might be interested in incorporating what you're doing in the wider community. So here, for example, this is an example that we've done with an office project. Yes, Joseph, do you want to? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm working with AI, even though I really not meant to, because the company is concerned about security risk. But I found that if I can define a problem, I can create software using the assistance of AI to solve the problem.
Absolutely. So that's so. I'll introduce you to some of the other members of the team. So we've got a whole range of different people that are doing it, coming from different directions. So the intention of the Automate group is to bring together people that are competent and experienced and are doing things to actually then come up with something that is properly repeatable and auditable. So one of the challenges that we've got in handover, because this is what we've been using it for, is that BIM models typically, the BIM models that are put into, or the data that's coming from BIM models that's put into O&M information often isn't complete. It's really the design information rather than the installation information. So therefore, often the O&Ms are not complete. So this is one of the tools that we've created that will allow us to interrogate a zip file of documents and very quickly identify whether it's got valid information in it or not. So this would normally have taken, in this particular case, you've got 10,000 documents. And what we discovered was that there was zip files within zip files within zip files in the O&M handover information. So my colleague Tim, he calls it like a Russian doll. And it's only when you actually get down and open those up that you find that there's a problem. Kevin, can I come to you in a moment when we've just been through this?
Yeah, absolutely, sure, John.
Yeah. So what we're doing here we'll be showing how we can do this. We're doing it so that we can take a zip file and it will analyze what's in the zip file and then very quickly tell you what the format is. So probably identify where there's incomplete files. So that can be done in 10 or 15 minutes rather than spending several days doing it. What we've also done is we've taken a manual process that we've been operating for some time now of doing a snagging audit of O&M information. In this particular case, there were 54 work packages. So what we've done is gone through and manually done
sleep. You just messaged
audit
me.
process.
Yeah, I know. I woke up. I'm gonna go back to sleep.
Oh, bye. Okay. Congrats.
Sorry, can you go on mute,
Bye.
please?
Bye.
Can you go on mute, please? Thank you. And so if, for example, there's warranty information missing or testing and commissioning information missing, that gets picked up. But this is a manual process, and this will take weeks to do for a large project. So what we've then done, and the outcome of that, by the way, is that we can produce a report, which is a dashboarded report against the various different work packages to identify quickly which ones are not complete. So, but obviously what we've then done, we've then taken that and turned the process that we've been operating from a manual perspective into prompts that we can then run using AI to also produce the reports automatically. So we're taking work that would normally take weeks to actually do, and it's coming down to certainly days. And by doing that also, it means that that information can then get fed back to the supply chain to say this information is not fit for purpose. We need we need that to be done more effectively. Our objective with this is also to improve the competency of the supply chain. So to be able to then say that if they know that something's going to be checked and people are actually reading this stuff, albeit it's machine reading, then it means that they're probably going to produce better quality information. And these are some of the practical outcomes of that, as to the warranties being voided because the maintenance cycle wasn't reflecting of what the manufacturer's information was. And also, spare parts, for example, not having the right spare parts information. So the process that we're following is to be able to automate the process of indexing basically a document dump, then extracting each document, the reference tables, to run to see if it exists within the file index. And then also checking each of the work package submissions, and then also drilling into the detail of the consistency of naming, of floors and spaces consistently named, checking the schedules, etc. So these are the use cases that we're following at the moment that we'd like others to join with us on, because if we do this together, we're going to get something much more interesting. And this is just one example here where, when we've done the analysis, this is the COBie data from the BIM model, and you can see here that all the door numbers are missing. And also the spaces that are in the model don't reflect the spaces that are in the door schedule. There was also 25 different door types on this project, but in fact, in the O&Ms, there was over 100. So we need to mop those together. So we've created the tools to be able to manually extract the information from the PDFs, but really we want this as proper machine readable information coming through from the supply chain. Also, this is also reading the CAD drawings, and we've identified that some of the doors are on the wrong floor. So here, for example, on this single floor, we've got one that's on the second floor and one that's on the first floor. This is in the same drawing. Same on the fourth floor here, and the same on the fifth floor. And this is really because of the way the CAD data has been created. There's not adequate care being given to the production of the information because people aren't expecting people to actually use it. But if you are using this to do proper relationships with schedules and planning works, it needs to be right. So what we've done is then taken that information, and then we've made it so that we can then tie that back to, we can then tie that back to the right data, so that we end up with connected ironmongery to that process. So that's where we're going with this. Also, to discourage handover information to be including this type of watermarking, because otherwise that's very difficult to read. Now, we understand why they're doing that, because they don't want door schedules to be used just to go out and procure from a different supplier. So that's why the ironmongery specialists tend to do this. But after the information, it's been ordered and installed, the FM team should get machine readable information. There's no reason not to have that machine readable information. So that's probably something that we can do to get the information structured properly from the start. and also being able to read the information from spreadsheets, so that we can actually extract the information and then go from there. So I'm going to stop there and ask if anybody's interested in joining that AI group. You'd be welcome to join up.
Can I just say, we will search in the chat for AI. So don't put in the chat, yes, I'd like to join that. You need to actually put AI in the chat if you want to join the AI group. So please do that. Thank you.
Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, George. All I was going to say was that using the AI tools in that way, I guess what you're doing is correcting the error, or at least identifying where the errors are and then coming up with a kind of workaround in order to make it all usable information. But surely the objective of the AI, or the use of the AI ultimately, is to make sure you don't have to do that, i.e. to put the process right in the first place, so that the information that's coming through immediately plugs into whatever you're plugging it into.
I'm pleased that you said that, Kevin, because that's actually the point that I didn't emphasize adequately. So what we're trying to do with the Golden Thread Task Force is get it right first time. That's what we're all working towards, right? But the fact is the industry isn't doing that at the moment for whatever reason. And I think possibly one of the reasons is that they're not being held to account when they're producing incomplete and poor quality information.
No, actually, I get that, but I guess my concern would be, apart from trying to keep the process as simple and as effective as possible, is that if you base everything around putting lots of people in place in order to fulfill the requirements of the golden thread, you create an overhead within the business that probably isn't sustainable, and at some point it'll get chopped back by somebody, and then you lose that golden thread. Over the sort of 30 years of a building's life, that's an awful big commitment to maintain that data throughout 30 years if you're having to handball it from one system to another, and you've got lots of people involved in that. And I think we've seen over the past 20 years that kind of administrative layer of people, that the specialists in middle management, have been removed, because it was unclear what they were doing or what value they were offering to the business. And I think if you continue to build around people in that sort of golden thread, you'll end up, losing the integrity of the data. I recently did an exercise which I'll happily share with you, that looked at statistical probability. So if you do everything with all the right numbers of people throughout the whole of the REBA cycle, and assume that a building has a life of about 30 years, and you do everything as immaculately as you can, you'll end up with a £3 million error upon handback in PFI. So that's doing everything correctly, and that bears little comparison to what we see in reality with, probably half, if not a quarter, of the number of the people that should be in the loop. So I think, that's always my first concern, is making sure that the process is right at the start of the building design, because that takes out a lot of the cost through in the operational phase later.
Absolutely. Jonathan.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Yeah, so I think in my last organisation, one of the things which was looking into AIs was around naming convention, but particularly files in the past which wasn't named to the standard which was required at that time. So they were looking into files and picking up the relevant information which were needed for the component of the name. I think the one thing which I was want to get onto is the fact of the bit which the AI needed was to train to say, I want to find the date, or I want to find the site, the asset number, or the key components which need to go in, or for example, the component which will link with the originator, which is in the file name. But the key bit of that is that the forms which are being trained for the AI to ask are all looking the same. And because we've got so many different suppliers doing different types of layouts of forms, even though you may be asking the same question, the AI may not pick it up because it's in a different form template. Yet actually the thing which we're all doing, even though they may be from different suppliers, is all the same inspections, the same activities which are being done,
Yeah.
but they're all on different, slightly different formatted forms, which you've trained the AI to do one thing, and then you come across from a different supplier and it's struggling, you've got to train it again.
Okay, Tim, could you take that and then go on to your point?
Oh, thanks, Richard. Okay, so there's a few things. First of all, if you're just using the large language model, you're not having to do any training at all. What you're doing is just altering the guardrails. So that is the instruction sets, and the work that we've been doing, which started as a research project, to do this analysis, is we're checking to see what comments it came up with, what it passed and what it failed, and then looking at the document and going, is that valid or whatever. But also part of the thing we're doing is going, oh, well, what would you need to do to make it pass? So this is like, show me how to cheat, but not quite, if that makes sense. It's almost like all the information was there, you just didn't articulate it. So there are two things. That's why we've framed this as automate. Is that some of it is AI interrogation, and some of it is actual machine automation, which means that it just does checking. And sometimes you just build a program. Like yesterday, I used vibe coding, which was mentioned earlier, I think was by Joseph, which was where he's using AI to actually generate the code, help him write the code, and then run it, and so that you can end up with something. We're also doing analysis on data sets, which was to do with help desk. And what I've said there is that it's giving me some information. I'm saying, right, can you help me write a Jupyter notebook? Now, if you're a data scientist, you'll know what a Jupyter notebook is, but basically it will create all the programmable things that will give you the same output. So you're not using AI there. What you're doing is you're using coding to give you those results and export and presentations. Now, when it comes to looking at regulations, that's when you then start to use knowledge bases. And that's where the AI is simply then acting as the intermediary between the question, understanding it, and then picking the right tool to then do the interrogation. So that's another thing. And then on top of that, you've also got.
Sorry, Tim. We are going to have to move on a bit.
Sorry, you shouldn't ask me.
No, not at all. I'll take a few minutes off the end so you can all have your say. I'm just saying, please be brief. Sorry.
Okay. No, well, that's it's not easy to explain in a few minutes, really.
Sure.
But I do understand that what we used to have to do is for instance, in natural language training models, we have to create our own data set and train it on that natural language one. Now we're starting to look and say, well, I don't need to do that anymore. I can use the LLM because all it's doing is interpreting what's being said, giving it a set of rules to work by, and coming back and saying, this is what I think you said, and then going off and getting the data. When we're talking about checking, then we're talking about two different things. One is looking at black and white, and the other is so it's objective, and the other is slightly subjective, and that's when we're looking at content. And the content one is where we're going to get is going to be the harder challenge. But just to say,
Tim,
did you provide me with any content is the easy one. The hard one is to say, well, what didn't you provide?
We can pick that up next week.
Thanks,
so
Tim.
on Thursday at I think it's 2:00, isn't it, Richard?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. Just or no.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin, very briefly.
Yeah, I was going to say, making the point about ontologies and semantics in terms of coding, Tim, it to me, AI is a bit like a sort of, willing puppy. It likes to go out and fetch things as quickly as it can, but you're kind of chucking a stick for it in woodland at the moment. So it can often come back with a similar looking stick, but it may not come back with exactly the stick you threw for it.
Yeah.
And in order to refine that and make it so that it's compliance friendly, or at least information you rely on, you have to put the right ontology in place. You have to put a kind of 3D structure of data in order to make sure that you always hit the right information.
Okay, that's right. Joseph, can I ask you to hold that question until the last 10 minutes when we close and have
Yeah,
discussion
sure.
then, please. Thank you. Right, George is looking for a mentor.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do at the moment is look at we've already had in the past, we've shown what we're doing as far as the digital asset capture is concerned, and what we're now in a situation to do is to bring together people that are willing to get involved with that. So if I just show you a couple of examples of what we've got. If you're interested in either being a mentor for asset capture, or indeed a user for asset capture, and we're working with some universities as well at the moment to then look at how we can then bring that together. But for example, here, this is an office building that we're working on at the moment, where we've got the asset list, and everything now has been tied back to 360 photograph, so that when you click on it, it will take you to that particular CCTV camera in the building. Now, we've got a hospital, for example, that's got 3,500 360 photos, but they've not been tagged yet. So we're working this around. See there, for example, by clicking on that fire door, it takes you to that individual fire door in the building. So if you're interested in engaging in what we're doing here, then it would be very interesting to see if you want to participate. We're planning to have a session, possibly every morning at 9 o'clock for half an hour, to get people engaged in this, to be able to start practicing, both as people that are doing tagging, but also as people who can act as a mentor. So Kevin, you've done this type of work before, haven't you? So it may be that you'd be willing to just oversee maybe 2 or 3 younger people as to whether they're picking the right things. And we can't break anything here. It's a really good method of training. So if you're interested in the digital asset capture or digital asset verification process, then let us know, and we can include you.
Right. So what are we putting in the chat then, George? Digital capture.
Yes.
Is going in.
DAC.
Okay, put digital capture, and we'll
Yep.
know that you want to be included in this group. Digital capture. Let me stress to particularly the new people in here. What we like to do is have a brief one-to-one conversation with you, about 15 minutes, at some point over the next couple of weeks. One of the steering committee will be in touch to make an appointment with you for a quick chat, just to see what we can do to help you and what you're actually looking for from the group. So be aware that you will be getting an invitation through for that.
So thank you, Richard. So for example, we're just going to have a chat about retrospective fire strategies, which the asset management teams are recognizing are particularly important at the moment. The combination of what I'm showing you here with the retrospective fire strategy plan is very, very consistent, because the 360 photos that have maybe been put in to enable them to monitor this particular entry system, this access system, that information can also be used to help a fire engineer, when they're looking at a plan, they have a better understanding of what that opening is. So they can use the 360 photos in line with the other information that they have, glued together to enable them to do work without possibly having to make as many visits to site. and that means we end up with lower cost thing. So Matt, can I call on you for a moment, just on that, to explain that?
Yeah, I mean,
That
from our, yeah, I'm here.
So, carry on, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, from my side, we're picking up a lot of the because
Can you
we're looking at
explain,
it from a.
Matt, could
Sorry?
you explain what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I sit on an advisory service for an SPV, and we manage other accounts for SPVs as well. So what we're actually looking at is our main focus now in the industry is for handback, and one of the key issues we're having is understanding where most of the estates are, because a lot of the obligations sit with the FM companies that tell you everything's been fine for 20 years. So as part of the due diligence piece, we have to make sure it is actually fine. And although the fire strategies in theory don't actually sit with us, they may sit with the NHS, they may sit with the FM, they may sit with tenants. In reality, we need them to be correct. So we're actually doing retrospective fire strategies, and then that triggers a load of other events when you start to find the variations and stuff that nobody's documented. So you may have a fire strategy, for example, that could be 14 years out of date on some estates. And the problem that, for example, the trusts and that have is trying to get all the tenants to tell them exactly what they've been doing, how many people in the building, or, they don't update things. So it just sort of gets pushed down the line to next year and next year and next year. But the implications can be quite significant, because when they alter things like door access systems, it can impact the site, because the people with the access may not be the same people that need to evac in a fire, but now they can't get out the building because the doors are blocked off. So you have things like that do occur on some of the sites, and I am actually pressing that quite a lot when variations come in, just to say, have you checked this? How does that interface with your fire alarm system? Have you updated your strategy? A lot of things people may not have asked previously. But with the retrospective surveys, it also then creates some changes that can be beneficial or make things a little bit more difficult. So, for example, you may find that you can reduce the number of fire dampers, for example, depending how you rezone the whole areas. You may find things, like I said, the door access system's been installed in areas it shouldn't be in. You may find that there's been walls put up, which was an evac corridor, that is no longer accessible because somebody decided to make it a help desk or hot desk area, and just decided to get rid of the door. So they do have some significant impacts. And also the other bit that a lot of people, I think, miss is when things move from business as usual to where it can drag in building control. And then it could end up triggering having to bring everything up to the latest standards and not the standards of when the building was built. So there's a lot of factors you've got to take in when looking at it, because there's a lot of risks that you may have hidden away there, assuming that you'll get the strategy done, everything online, everything's fine. And then you start seeing some trigger events around, like fire doors that were never certified because of the age of the building, but they altered some of the buildings. So have they done the fire doors? Is it a 30? Is it a 60? Is the wall 30, 60? And it starts a ripple effect in opening the can of worms. So they're important and need to be done, but it's also understanding that there is a lot of risks of actually doing them correctly, because of things people have done over the years. It's not stuff we've done, it's stuff we've inherited. So, and that's the biggest thing, is getting people to understand it's a collaboration. It's not a finger pointing event. If somebody takes a wall down, there's no point us complaining about it 14 years later. We just need to get things sorted now. So it is important that everybody's on the same page and everyone's just like, we need to fix it. I'm not interested who did it, when they did it, why they did it. We just need to get everything where it should be, so that we can hand the buildings back fit for purpose. And that aligns with the Regulation 38, because let's face it, if I trust the NHS, local authority, whoever is taking the building back, if these documents aren't aligned, in theory, I wouldn't take the building back, because that liability moves to me. Because you say, well, is everything compliant? Well, no, we haven't updated anything for 20 years. Well, no, I'm not signing that off then. So I think that's where Regulation 38 is an important one, because it's almost like the criteria has shifted, the responsibility has shifted for handback. So it's not the responsibility of the people that have managed it, where before you'd blame the builder and go after the builder. Now, once your signature's on there, there's a bit of argument space on Regulation 38, which wasn't there previously. So I think it's important that all the government entities dealing with handback actually understand the risks and liabilities with this, but B, it's not one single point of failure, because everybody should be doing this and keeping up to date as part of due diligence regardless. Doesn't matter which party it is. But that's my personal view on it.
Matt,
anyway.
can you take a question?
Yeah, sure.
Kevin.
Yeah, I was going to say, Matt, just commenting on the things you've said, I would totally agree with all those issues in terms of moving walls and being on top of it. But I also say within hospitals especially, the fire strategy is something that's very different, because it often doesn't involve evacuating the building. It could mean keeping people in the building and diverting, people around them, because it might be more risky to move them from intensive care to the outside than it would be to leave them in the building. So the key thing for me from an asset management perspective are things like, how do the air handling systems and vent systems correspond to the fire dampers? Because some of the fire dampers can be left open in the event of a fire, so that smoke is routed in a particular way to keep people in the building. And that's one of the things I see most frequently in hospitals that have changed, where nobody has made a record of that change. So an air handling unit that used to feed room 1, 2, and 3 suddenly is feeding a different room, because it's been changed as the rooms have been moved around and as the walls have been moved around. And I think that can often go on for many years, and suddenly you find that the fire strategy is very different to the way it was intended to be.
Yeah, 100%. I'd also say this is partly why it's important that people update the RDSs. And when they do the ventilation changes, I think it falls under Part F of the bill, the British standards, isn't it? I'm sure it's Part F. So you're supposed to take air changes when you do those changes as well. So you're 100% right. If a wall's moved, because the ventilation may be in a completely wrong place as well now. I've been in schools where all the supplies and extracts are together, and I look at it and think, well, I know what's happened there. Whoever was designing this on the CAD has left it there, all there, because he knows he needs to put them somewhere, and hasn't had the layout done yet, because it's an open atrium, expecting somebody to come back, and nobody's ever come back. So he just fitted them all. Somebody's just fitted them all next to each other. So it just doesn't function.
Well, it's also the fact all your maintenance on your fire dampers is done as part of your AHU maintenance. So again, that needs to be associated with the fire damper that's looking after particular areas for it to be effective and for it to be worthwhile.
But also mentioned in medical environments, a good one would be, for example, physiotherapy, or where there's mobility that has changed. So, for example, if you suddenly put a gym area in where it's all got hoists and stuff with limited mobility, has the strategy been adjusted for the fact that everybody in that room has less mobility than it was previously the occupants had? So it is quite a
I think the other one
Sorry,
is numbers, isn't it? That rooms are often designed to deal with 4 people, and when you go in there, you find that it's often dealing with 30 people, because the NHS have compressed more and more people in the room, and that's got to have an impact on the fire strategy.
Okay, George, have we got? Is Ron going to say something?
Fuzzy, what are you doing?
You're on mute, George.
Yeah, sorry. Ron, are you on the call? Ron Hedger?
Yeah, he is. I was just going to call him about Regulation 38, actually.
I've been putting things in the chat because it seems the easiest way to do it. I don't have a specific presentation or piece to give today. I'm just
let me ask you about
responding,
regulation.
really.
Let me ask you about what you said about Regulation 38.
Yes.
What you just put in the chat.
Yes. So Regulation 38 it's building Regulation 38 applies to the sign-off and completion of works that are controlled under the building regulations. I put that in because Matt, you appeared to be referring to Regulation 38 as an ongoing record of the in this case for the fire precautions within a building over a maybe 20-year period of change. That's not my appreciation of the case. Regulation 38 is a one-shot at the end of the building regulation process to say, yes, this is complete and the information from this task has been passed over. End of chat.
Yeah,
and that's therefore that doesn't happen through the day-to-day management and evolution of the use of a building. And that is my appreciation. So that's the whole point of the golden thread, is to fill in that space. So the golden thread should record those day-by-day changes through the fire strategy of a building, whether it's because they've changed the use of a room, added more people to a room, changed the capabilities, decided to put in access control, anything like that. Technically, it should go through building control. Even a change of the type of people that they put in a room is a material change under the building regulations, which requires a reconsideration of the fire precautions. But that would mean that building control would be just buried in daily changes if everyone did it according to the letter of the law. So it's quite reasonable that that's not the case, but all of those changes must be recorded, otherwise the fire strategy evaporates.
Ron, if I could just question that. I mean, you're absolutely the expert. That's why I've asked you to be here. But I've just questioned what you've just said there, because Regulation 38 isn't only about receiving information, it's also the duty of care of the responsible person that's having work carried out to provide the contractor with the information that they need to ensure that the building, the work's going to be safe. Am I wrong about that?
No, it is a two-way activity, but it only applies to works, building works that are regulated by the building regulations.
Absolutely, no question about that.
So in the absolute black and white legal interpretation, then yes, the changing of the number of people in a room from 4 to 30 is actually building works, and therefore should be regulated under the building regulations and should be subject to Regulation 38. But applying the regulations to that level of detail would be untenable.
No, sure.
However, the changes have to be recorded.
Ron, can I ask a question? It's a very quick one. Talking about Matt's situation where he's on about handing a building, back at the end of a 30-year contract, and that building then becomes the property of someone else. What's your view on certification of that building prior to its handover?
As far as I'm aware, there is no certification fire safety. Well, there is no fire safety certification process. It was actually quite reasonably covered in the previous legislation, the Fire Precautions Act, with literally fire certification, which was directly enforced by the fire service. That's no longer the case. There is no building general purpose, workplace or other building certification process. It's my understanding that the Building Safety Act and the regulator is moving towards building certification for large residential buildings, but it's not in place yet. So a higher risk building will eventually have a building safety certificate, which will include the recording of the fire strategy, the fire precautions, and associated with that, all the management and maintenance of those. But that doesn't exist other than for higher risk buildings, and that process is not mature yet.
Okay, Andy Coldridge.
Yeah, thank you. Ron, can you confirm for me, Regulation 38 has to be completed prior to occupation?
Yes, it should be the process of handing that information over in all necessary directions should occur before the building regulation completion certificate is issued. Now, I have to put a disclaimer in here. I'm not a building control officer. I'm not an expert in the full range of building regulations, only from the point of view of fire safety. But the regulation 38 is something that should be completed in order for the completion certificate for those regulated building works to be signed off by the relevant building control body.
Now that comes under kind of the Gateway 3 model,
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
Anything that was designed and built under Gateway 2, where Regulation 38 is actually isn't necessarily being handed over, or the information isn't being handed over or validated, it means that actually occupations are taking place prior to that being completed. But I'm not sure at this moment in time whether the building safety regulator is under anything Gateway 2 is required to sign off anything at this moment in time. I think Gateway 3 is what I'm hoping and praying is going to kind of make my day job a bit easier, but currently it's obviously a bit of a challenge.
My understanding is that Gateway 3 requires that the design that's agreed at Gateway 2 and is fixed at Gateway 2 and cannot be varied from other than through the variation process that they put in place. That must be demonstrated to have been built exactly to the design that was set at Gateway 2, and Gateway 3 incorporates the handing over of all necessary Regulation 38 information.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've raised on previous calls is that, dealing with the Regulation 38 handover, the digital handover, I'm evidencing the fact that most of what I'm receiving isn't an as-built document. The other side of that is that, when I challenge it, it's the question there is that I'm raising, that it's, or the observation that I'm raising is that it's not an as-built, it's not what we procured. We didn't procure an as-built, and I've raised that before. I think Gateway 3 for me is going to be a bit of a godsend. I'm hoping it's going to make things easier. But what I haven't read is that under Gateway 3, the building safety regulator will collect the data, will check it, that everything is in line with what's been planned and what's been planned, but not necessarily what's been built. So the validation of that data for me still poses a risk, or the risk being that actually what we've got is data that is inaccurate because it wasn't built like that. But what we've got is something that represents a drawing. So what I want to say is that I've recognized that data's great. A BIM model would be hugely helpful because that would then, kind of help to validate that. Developers currently aren't going down that route because of the cost associated to it, I'm guessing. But more importantly, when it comes to the onward management of Regulation 38 and the golden thread information, what I'm conscious of is the fact that we've got the data that, after everything said and done, still doesn't equal what might have actually been built. And that to me is a concern. And I don't know what the answer is, but I think you can't beat the good old fashioned actually getting someone to have a look at a cable that runs 27 floors that actually isn't the right specification cable and, quantifies or equals a mandatory occurrence report, because it's not the right type cable. And that's a real example.
Just to build on that, Andy, what I think the practical way forward with that is 360 photographs, right? Because 360 photographs are very low cost to do, and they're a mechanism to then validate that. So one of the questions I've got for the community, if you know people who are knowledgeable about fire, mechanical services, electrical services, fabric, FF&E, if you could make them aware of the fact that we're looking for people now who've got that expertise, who could act as either being able to identify what a valve looks like and what a distribution board looks like, and from a competence perspective, but also to be able to train other people up. So these are likely to be fee earning tasks that we want to just connect with people that have got the appropriate knowledge to be able to do it. So if we can reach out to our community of people and say, if you've got expertise in these areas, then please get in touch with us because we'd very much like to talk to you.
Right, before we take any going any further, I just want to before people start leaving, because we are really at time, just to remind everyone, if you're interested in education, put education or schools in the chat. Residential, put residential. Healthcare, put healthcare. AI, put AI. Put that in the chat and we will be in touch with you. Okay, so who's next? Joseph. You're on mute.
I was going to mention what your previous speaker said about wanting to an expert to look at the various elements, what a valve looks like, for example, or what a various fire component might actually look like for their validation on their video capture. And again, this is something that comes back to AI. For example, I wanted to bypass a gate where I'm living because we haven't got fobs for the actual gate system itself. And I took a photograph of the gate and the button that opened and closed the gate, and then it very quickly identified everything. It told me where it was made, where it was manufactured, who to contact. Every single thing I know about that particular thing. It just looked at it, told me what it was. So, oh yeah, there's a control box. It's got to control this. So I went outside and took a picture of the control box, and he came back. Yeah, that's such and such a control box, manufactured by so and so, and it placed in where is it? Somewhere out South London. There, that's where they make it. These are the contact details. This is the schematic, how it works, and so on. It's all this AI. Just you can. I was using Grok at the time. I suspect other programs do the same thing, but that might be a solution. If you're not sure what something is, you can just feed that information into AI and it'll tell you.
Sure. Yeah. So whether that's coming from a person's experience, Joseph, or whether it's actually coming from a technology supported thing, that's exactly what we want to do. But at the end of the day, we'd like to have some people in this process. And if there's people who are willing and interested in doing asset tagging, for example, we want to be able to train the next generation up so that they've got the knowledge to be able to do it. We don't want to be completely dependent on AI, I don't think.
Just commenting on the point Joseph made there as well, George, that if you're talking about an access gate, as you were in that case, and you go and take a picture of the access gate and a picture of the control box that's controlling the magnetic opening of it, it wouldn't necessarily know as AI that might be part of a bigger BMS system, i.e. controlling all the access control for the building. So then if you go and appoint a contractor just to maintain that bit of it, or to investigate a fault with that bit of it, or try and override it, you could be creating all sorts of other problems within the overall access control strategy.
Yeah.
So I think that's where AI can be a problem as much as a solution when you're looking at things in isolation without seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
I think, can I just comment on that? I think I don't disagree with you there. But I think we're in Joseph's scenario, and Joseph, I didn't quite catch the name of the tool you were using, but what was it called?
Grok.
CROCK.
No, GROC.
Oh, GROCK.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but that type of scenario is when you're working with suppliers. It's what you've got in the absence of having kind of digital data, something that tells you what you've got, particularly on older buildings, perhaps. It kind of gives you something to give to the contractor. And yes, I agree that it might be part of a wider access control system, BMS system, or otherwise, but it gives you something to kind of take and give to a supplier in terms of arriving with the right parts. And I think where there's value in that is that you kind of arrive with the parts in one visit and not two visits. I need to have a look at it first to see what I need to order. I need to go away and come back. So there are cost implications or cost savings, I think, in that type of scenario, which in the resi world, for those of us that are managing sort of blocks of residential units. It's when it comes down to costs and service charge and having to explain that away at the end of the year to leaseholders, any saving adds value. So
okay, Martin
like
Jorgensen, and this will be the last one.
Hi. Just
Martin,
wanted to...
you put in the chat that you can fulfill that role. Is that mentor?
What we were just talking about as far as someone
right, okay,
who works
favor?
in industry to identify things. That's basically what I do day to day.
Right, George, so what should that be then?
That would be
mentor.
Yeah, that's fine.
Martin, could you put mentor in the chat, please, when you finish your question? Thank you. Carry on.
To be honest, that was it really. But other people have already kind of covered what I was going to ask. So I just wanted to highlight that if you did want someone who is able to do that, then I'm right here.
Yeah, I know you anyway, Martin, and I'm very grateful for that. It'd be fantastic if you could get involved with it. Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I think that brings it to a close. We'll be having a meeting again in about 5 weeks, so look out for an invite, probably around the 18th of March. They'll go out over the next day or two. Thank you again for a very stimulating and very full 90 minutes, and we will see you. If you're not coming on next week, we will see you next month. All the best. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.